Everyone.
Welcome to the Woman's Cave mobile.
Yeah, we're mobile. We are on our Vegas book tour. We're so excited. So check out our interview on WCOMB yesterday.
Absolutely. And also, this is Jade.
And this is Winona. We remember to introduce ourselves.
Yes, we did. And we are the co-authors and co-founders of the And I Thought Ladies and the And I Thought series. And that is And I Thought Divorce Was Bad with Other Life Lessons. And I Thought Being Grown Up Was Easy. And I Thought
I could juggle it all.
And I Thought I Did My Journey Alone. All of those are available on Amazon.com, andwethought.com, and BarnesandNoble.com.
Oh, don't forget the CD, Jade. We also have And I Thought Ladies, the poetry.
There. It's all there.
It's all there.
Just go to andwethought.com, go to the shop, and you'll see it all.
Okay, but this is not about us. This is
totally
about being us. Like top drawer, educational, wonderful.
Yes, and this is welcome to our installment of
Episode 3
of Books and Company with Tara Woods Turner and her wonderful guest, and we will turn it over to her right now.
Thank you, Jade and Winona. Thank you for the introduction. As they said, my name is Tara Woods Turner, and I'm really happy to have you today here on another epic episode of Books and Company, where great people discuss great books with the great authors who wrote them. So, really happy today to have as our guest Aisilin Kearns, who is an author from Australia, actually, Down Under. And we're happy to have her here with us today. Aisilin is the author of the Soldiering On series, a wonderful group of books that deal with amazing heroes and heroines who are, well, actually, you know what? I will take it to Aisilin, and I'll let her tell you about the series. I'll let her introduce it. Aisilin, how are you today, my dear? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So good to have you here today. So why don't you tell our readers, our viewers, our listeners about the Soldiering On series?
The Soldiering On series is romantic suspense series about a group of men and women who are ex-military, and they've all been injured in the war, and they decide to open up a security company / temp agency in order to prove to the world that they still have what it takes.
I love it. So many little nuggets there to expand on, but what a great idea. What a great idea. As you probably know, in the romance genre, the wounded hero category is extremely popular right now. It's doing very well right now. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are, today even more so than ever aware of exactly what our veterans, especially our wounded veterans, have done, for us, as citizens. So it's definitely wonderful to express that appreciation in literature, but it seems to be going even deeper than that. There seems to be some aspect of the wounded hero that readers are really responding to. So you're one of the many authors who's found a way to tap into that. How would you explain that?
For me personally, the reason I love wounded heroes is I like the way that it kind of deepens character. It's a way to show that characters have been through something and come out the other side, and but I also like that just in terms of, I guess, power dynamics in a way. I enjoy when the sort of heroes maybe don't necessarily, I'm not really big on the alpha males. I like strong heroes, but I also like heroes that maybe don't always feel that they're good enough for the heroine, or that, that they've been through something and, they all react differently to that. So, but yeah, so for me, that's why I enjoy the way it affects the interplay between all the characters and things like that. And yeah, I just enjoy writing those characters and I enjoy reading them, and so it just made sense that that was something that I would eventually go into, you know.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, I think you absolutely hit on you know, what it is that people are responding to, you know, with this category of romance, and that is the fact that there's a certain level of vulnerability that these heroes have that make it not only easier to relate to them, because, you know, we all have our wounds, so to speak, whether they're emotional or physical, but there's a certain sense of epic, you know, passion, and, you know, all of the great emotions that a great romance will bring out of us, that we can associate with people who have overcome difficulties and challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it.
So one aspect in particular of your books that readers really seem to respond to, and you know, again, I've seen it more than one occasion with your reviews, is people love your dialogue. People love the way you write dialogue between your characters. It's been described as, you know, really realistic, really accessible. So how are you, when you're writing dialogue between your characters, when you go into the zone, how do you manage to recreate such realistic and believable dialogue?
That's a tough one for me to reflect on because it just comes so naturally in the moment. But really,
I guess that's your answer. Just say, yes,
yeah.
I'm good at it. I'm really good at it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's just, you know, to make the dialogue flow, it's like, well, that's what one character would say, and that's how that character would respond. And, you know, I do, like, sometimes the first attempt is not perfect, but I'll go back and go through the conversation again and fix it and so forth. But, yeah, no, it's just really, I think part of it is just that I write quite short, truncated dialogue, and I don't do many big speeches, and I don't do much exposition through the dialogue, and I just try and keep it like short and sharp, and I think that really helps. I've read quite a few books lately that have had like, but it sounds like the characters are reading a Wikipedia page, and it's just like, that's not really how people talk, you know?
Right.
And so I just try and avoid that, I guess. And I mean, because I write romantic suspense, it can get quite a bit tense, I suppose. And so I like to kind of bring a bit of levity to the situation through the dialogue. You know, my characters can be quite deadpan sometimes, and kind of just like, oh well, okay, this is happening, but it's and I try and do that through dialogue, you know, so it's just, I guess that's how it flows, and it's a perfect way to reveal character, and it's, yeah, just overall, I think dialogue is the easiest thing to write. Like when I'm sitting down and I'm like, yes, it's a dialogue scene, my word count is going to go up so quickly just because it's just so easy.
Well, I have to say kudos, because from what I've seen, and certainly what is reflected in the opinions of your readers, is it's something particularly enjoyable about your writing. Now, it seems that it's a combination of just intuitive skill at, you know, understanding the grasp of how people communicate, but also from what I'm understanding is there's also some technical skill, because you know how to go back. In your first run, you get the essence of what it is you want to convey in your writing. But then on the second run, you go back and you craft it and you hone it. And this is a method that is of particular value to you as a writer. You definitely believe that you should just get it out there, get it down on paper, and then go back and craft it.
So that's definitely how I write. I definitely give myself permission to be a bit crap the first time round when I'm writing. So my first draft, maybe not the best, but it's so much easier to edit it once it's there and I understand where the story is going and the whole shape of it. And I can go back and not only edit the big picture stuff, but then the flow and then, you know, just line by line and whatever else needs to be done. But the first draft is the hardest. So that's the one you get out of the way first.
Yes.
I don't understand writers who edit as they go. To me, that would just be so slow and infuriating, and I would just hate myself doing that. So I just think, for me, just giving myself permission to say, look, this was not perfect the first time around, but it's okay, move on, get the rest of it out, and then you can come back and fix that later. It's just, that's very smooth.
Yes, it's elegantly referred to as the vomit draft. So,
yes.
Yeah, so just get it out there. Isn't that a lovely term?
I know.
So one thing I wanted to ask you to share with your readers with us today is, as a romantic suspense or romantic thriller writer, how wonderful is it? I mean, how awesome is it that we get to combine the best of both genres? So why don't you tell us how you came to write in this style as opposed to just, you know, basically, you know, just romance or
Straight contemporary, or so for me, the first attempt at a full novel that I did was a historical romance. And I got about 25% of the way in and just got a bit bored and somehow managed to introduce a murder mystery plot into this very straight historical romance. And that was kind of a moment for me when I realized I just really like that combination, to switch back and forward between the two. So, if it's just all romance, I get a little bit bored at writing it, and I want to switch away and make it exciting and put some action into it and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I can't write straight suspense because it needs to have a romance and a happy ending, because that's all I read. So it seems like a very natural kind of progression. It also helped that my style of writing is quite pacey. Like I don't get deep into like really long descriptions, or I don't take too many detours or anything like that. Like it's fairly straightforward. The sentences are short. It's and a couple of lines of description and then I'm right into the action kind of thing. So it really just seems like a natural marriage of my talents and my interests and that kind of thing. So I do intend to move into other romance subgenres. I'm planning to release some straight contemporaries this year and some historicals, finish that series, and maybe even steampunk and all that kind of stuff.
I know, this is crazy. I was totally going to ask you about steampunk. I mean, that's no, that so far that is not in your literary canon. You have no steampunk titles in your library at this point. But I have
plans though.
Right, and it's so crazy. being even somewhat familiar with your work and your writing style, and then of course having you explain what it is that you love about writing in a mixed genre. I was going to ask you, have you ever considered steampunk? And lo and behold, so yeah.
Definitely. Steampunk would actually make a lot of sense, because when I was a teenager and I was first writing stories, they were all fantasy stories. Then I moved in, and as I said, my first novel was a historical novel, which is unreleased, but it's there. And then, that would kind of really be a good mix of the two, and then it would be a romance, and it's definitely there at the back of my mind percolating. I definitely have an idea for a series. It would be a bit of a departure for me though. But yeah, anyway, it's definitely something that will come in the future.
Awesome. So you're quite a prolific writer. You've released several books in a relatively short amount of time, and I suspect that if you had more time, it'd be quite dangerous the amount of work you'd be able to turn out. So what is it? We often ask writers, how is it that you come to this creative process? But I think what's so we should ask the opposite, and how do you contain all of the ideas that you would write if you had time? How do you turn it down a notch? How do you control the muse?
Oh man, I mean, it takes some discipline. It's true. It's when you get to the boring bit in the story you're writing and you have like 20 ideas ready to go, and it's trying to stick with the one and finish that before you move on to the next one. It can be like, man, such a challenge. But yeah, I mean, the steady output is a little bit of an illusion in that, like, the Station Alpha, which is the first one I wrote, but is the second release because there's a prequel novella. I actually wrote a massive chunk of that in an 8-day period because I went on holiday to a small little cabin in Austria, and I stayed there for 8 days, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote, and a massive big chunk of the book got done then. So I don't think that I could keep up that level of output constantly, but at the time it really helped. But I mean, basically you just set a schedule and work to it. It helps that I'm unmarried, I don't have kids, so I can kind of do what I want with my time. But yeah, containing the ideas is the tough one. I mean, I literally have about 20 books planned that it's like, I just want to get this one over with so I can move on to the next one. And then it's just, it's constant.
Yes. So, a lot of us, have, come to writing from, other careers, other professions, other avocations, and we just have this, burning desire to write. You, on the other hand, your education, your career, you've been about the business of wordcraft or wordsmithing for a while. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I mean, obviously in high school, English was like my go-to. I aced it. I loved it. It was amazing. I went straight into university and did an English degree. Couldn't get employed because nobody wants somebody with an English degree. Then I went back to uni and got my master's in teaching, actually, early childhood development, and realized partway through that I had zero interest in being a teacher. So now I've circled back to writing, and I currently work as an assistant producer at a production company. So I get to write, briefs and, a few scripts and things like that. So that's been really good fun.
So you are, I happen to know this, you are an inveterate, a natural introvert. So
yeah.
Is your writing a way to look out onto the world, to give the world a part of yourself that doesn't necessarily have to do with interaction? Is it cathartic? What is it like being such a prolific writer, but yet being a naturally shy person?
I mean, I don't think shyness and introversion is necessarily the same thing. I think I can be sociable and charming and all of that if I need to. I just find it really tiring. So to me, it's writing as an escape. I can go home and kind of just immerse myself in that world, which is a lot less tiring than the real world.
Right.
And it's also, I think, a way of studying human nature in a way that, it can only partially be done face to face, like constructing characters and figuring out how they interact with each other and making that natural and all that sort of stuff. It helps you dig deep in a way that you don't necessarily you know, think about your friends or your acquaintances or things like that. You know,
Right.
they are just people, and you don't necessarily think, oh, that's the way that they react that way because of this and their wound and their goal and their motivation and their conflict and all of that sort of stuff. Like you don't think about that when you think about real people. So it's nice in a way to sort of dig into the characters and really just understand them and the way they tick and everything. And I think it's really helps to, you know, really understand humans and humanity and, you know, just even people around you. You know, sometimes I'll take elements from people that I've met and put it into characters, and it really will really help me with understand them in ways that you know may not in other circumstances.
Right, exactly. It becomes a sort of a bridge to from the fictitious to the real, and because human nature is human nature, and through whatever means that we can use to understand one another better, that can only ever be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it teaches empathy in a way as well, you know, like it really helps me understand people that don't, you know, either don't come in contact with very often, or that it's that I might not like in real life. And it helps me kind of understand, you know, I think it always helps to read and write about people who are not necessarily exactly like you. And I think that really teaches us something about ourselves as well, you know, and gives us that sense of empathy to other people. And, you know, I try and incorporate a lot of diversity into my work and things like that. And so I think that's important for, you know, just in general. I think diversity in media is important, but you know, also just for me to make sure that that I understand people who are different to me, and that they are real people, and they react like real people do, and that kind of thing. Like, obviously that's like the first step to writing a character who's different to you, but anyway, I don't know what I'm saying, but
no, well said. Well said. Now, speaking of understanding people and getting to know people, you happen to be a member of an extremely supportive writing group. So tell us a bit about that and the importance of connecting with other authors.
Oh wow. So I think that you learn so much from other authors, and that, you know, there's nobody else as supportive as authors, particularly self-published indie authors, as other authors, because we're all in the trenches together, and we, you know, we all want to uplift each other, and if it's a success for one of us, it's a success for all of us. But also, just like, you know, you learn from authors. Authors are the ones who understand, you know, structure and character and all those things in ways that readers don't necessarily think about, you know, what they're reading that way. And, you know, just having people there to workshop ideas, and just so you don't feel alone in the world, because man, writing is a lonely thing. And sometimes you just need someone to talk to or complain to, or, you know, just like, hey, is this idea the worst idea ever, or does it have some merit? Like, you know, you got to have a group around you, and it's just, oh man, yeah, I couldn't do it without other supportive writers. You couldn't do it.
So the group is Romance Readers and Writers, which is found on Goodreads. And the founder of that group, author Annie Arcane, She also happens to have something in common with you. Aside from writing great romances, is she also writes about vulnerable heroes. So that must be especially gratifying to be a part of a group that's so like-minded in so many ways. And in this instance, a very specific or particular way. So what words of encouragement would you give to other would-be authors out there who are contemplating or have a desire to write really strong romance? Because it's funny, because there seem to be a few lingering stereotypes or stigma associated with reading romance, but at the same time, it is by far, in a way, the most popular, the most widely read genre. So what advice would you give to aspiring romance writers?
Oh, well, I mean, first up, just ignore the haters. Like,
I like that.
It's just, everyone's going to get on your case about it, and they're going to be like, hey, when are you going to write real books, or when are you going to write books that don't have sex in them, or whatever. And it's just, tell them to bugger off.
Exactly.
I mean, to me, it's the most empowering genre there is, because no other genre has, you know, it is about women and by women for women, and like the narratives of women, and you know, all of the stories that you read are about women getting what they want. And to me, it's like, you don't get that in other genres. And it's, you know, and most of the romance novels you read, the women at the end up with the guy, the job, the amazing life, and it's like, that's winning, you know? It's just, we need to support that.
I can think of a few things that are more empowering, actually. So.
Yeah. So just seeing those role models is just, you know, that's what you want to model your life on. And the fact that people say that it's unrealistic, I don't think it is. I've met plenty of women who have fallen in love with guys and have a good job, and it's just like, why is that considered a fantasy? I mean,
right. Well, it seems to me that it seems to me from my conversations with other readers, people who can tell you why they don't particularly enjoy romance have, you know, very valid and strong reasons for that. But people who tell you why they don't like romance novels are almost always the ones who never really read them.
Yeah, right. They read the first 3 pages of 50 Shades and just decided the rest was all nonsense.
Exactly. So this is an extremely serious and important question, Aisilin. I've got to get to the bottom of this. What is your preoccupation with having a dog, and why don't you have one yet?
Well, firstly, I love dogs. I just adore them, and they just make me really, really happy. And so, but I don't have one because I've been living in an apartment for on and off. I've just moved into another one. I was in a previous one. Before that, I was in an apartment. So it's, basically I haven't had the house. And as soon as I get a house with a yard, the dog is the first to move in. Even before I move in, dog.
So they're practical. So there are practical reasons.
Sadly,
You're an animal lover. I love that.
Yeah. I'm a vegan, so I'm like super animal lover.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, this is off topic, but not necessarily. Why don't you tell us about that, your veganism, because it's an awesome lifestyle. Were you always one, or was this a progression or an evolution?
A bit of both. I turned mostly vegetarian when I was about 11 or 12. So I stopped eating red meat and then cut out chicken and everything else. And eventually, so I was pescatarian for a while, and then I cut that out, and I developed the lactose intolerance, so I cut that out. And then eventually it all just became veganism, and now I couldn't imagine living life any other way. It's just, that's what's natural to me. And I think I would, just the idea of eating meat kind of grosses me out. Yeah, but I mean, it's, you know, that's the choice I'm making and I love it. It's actually very difficult here in the Middle East to find vegan food. Here in Doha, the first vegan restaurant just opened up last year and you have no idea how excited I was.
I need to correct myself from earlier. I said you were in Australia, but you're actually from Australia, but you're living in Qatar.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so I've been here 2 years now.
I actually have someone who wants to say hello to you and to tell you to hang in there until it happens. So say hi.
Oh my gosh.
Say hello.
Oh my gosh, that is the cutest dog.
This is Catherine. Catherine, say hi to Aisilin. Say hi.
Hello.
She says
All the time. Hello.
Say hello. But she just wanted to say hello and tell you to hang in there until you can have your own little four-legged friend.
I wanna. She's so cute.
Okay, say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Okay, good.
Hi, you guys. That is one amazing interview. By the way, I just wanted to come in and say that, and an adorable dog. I have one quick question for you, Aisilin.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so how do you avoid going into the trap of making a generic, almost romance character? Because, I mean, you have to read so many romances to get writing. So how do you, like, avoid that trap and always interesting and new?
Well, I mean, romance is built on tropes, and that includes character tropes as well as plot tropes. And so in a sense, there is, you know, sometimes you just don't have to avoid them. Sometimes that's what readers want. They want a very typical romance character. But for me, there's certain elements that I basically take the archetype of, say, the wounded hero, which is quite common in my writing, and I'll put little twists in it. Like, for example, Blake, who is the hero of book 2, Guarding Sierra, he is he's pansexual, and he you know, comes from an abusive home, which is not necessarily something that you'll, you know, see a lot in the sort of, you know, tough military heroes and things like that. So, you know, just try and put little mesh things together that you wouldn't necessarily think go together, or put little surprise twists on it, or, you know, particularly in terms of just things that the readers might not expect.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a wonderful job keeping it fresh. Just like you did this interview. You so totally rocked it.
Thank you very much.
So, Aisilin, why don't you quickly tell us how we can connect with you on social media, how we can contact you, your website, and where we can find your books.
Well, I'm on Amazon, obviously, for the books. For ebooks, I'm also on all other ebook retailers. And I have 2 out in paperback as well, if that's preferred. And my website is aislinkearns.com. My Facebook is aislin.kearns.writer. And then my Twitter and Tumblr is Ardent Aisilin, because ardent is one of my favorite words.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you so much for joining us today. This was an awesome interview. And so everybody
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Had a great time.
Tara, can you tell us where we can find you?
Yes. My book also can be found on Amazon.com. It's the Beyond Parenting book, first in a series, the other 2 which will be released later this year. I can be found on Goodreads, of course, and on my website, www.tarawoodsturner.com. And there you'll find, you know, all of my social media interfaces, and you can catch me on just about every platform. So yeah, that's That's where I'm living on the web. So stop by and say hello. Sign up.
Every time you do that wrap up, I'm like, yeah, she's not lying. She literally means every platform. I think between you and Aisilin, there's nothing that you missed. Anyway, so you have been listening to Books and Company by the host of Tara Woods Turner and her guest Aisilin, and we thank you guys so much for coming to the Women's Cave. It has been awesome having 4 women in here today, and we are the And I Thought Ladies, and we are the co-founders and co-hosts of the And I Thought Ladies speaking group and the And I Thought Ladies show. You can also find our books on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and if you want that chicken scratch or doctor script, as I say, written in your book and personalized to you, you can go to andwethought.com. So we look forward to seeing you guys again and hearing from you guys. And you can always email us at ladies@andwethought.com. We're going to end by saying our favorite statement, that wisdom is all around you if you're willing and open to finding it and accepting it. So this is Winona and Jade. Bye-bye, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, we are finished recording.
Oh.